Okay, welcome to the League of Women Voters of Klickitat and Skamania County's Lunch with the County Auditors. Norma?
Good afternoon and welcome. We are recording today's presentation. I am Norma Benson, a member of the leadership team of the nonpartisan League of Women Voters of Washington, Klickitat and Skamania Counties at-large group. Ever since the founding of the League 100 years ago, the League of Women Voters has encouraged the informed and active participation of citizens in government. The League's mission statement is empowering voters, defending democracy. We envision a democracy where every person has the desire, the right, the knowledge, and the confidence to participate. Our local League of Women Voters group is pleased to present Lunch with the Auditors of Klickitat and Skamania Counties, How Elections Work. Klickitat County Auditor Brenda Sorensen and Skamania County Auditor Robert Waymire have graciously agreed to answer our questions about the many facets of voting in our counties. Thank you for joining us, Brenda and Robert, and welcome. Each county auditor, will have a few minutes to introduce themselves and their county elections process. Then we will have a question and answer session with questions that have been submitted ahead of time by the public. We will leave a few minutes at the end for Q&A from the audience. If any questions come up, please use the Q&A feature. You can also vote on the questions you'd like to be asked, and they will be asked in that order. Sasha Bentley is going to host the rest of the meeting today. Many of you know Sasha for her work in our community. She is on the leadership team of the Columbia Gorge Women's Action Network, and she's a member of our league. Sasha, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Norma. Now I'd like to introduce you to Brenda Sorensen, Klickitat County Auditor, and Robert Waymire, Skamania County Auditor, who will have a few minutes to tell us about them and their office. So let's start with Klickitat County Auditor Brenda Sorensen.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I've been in office since November of 2006. I have 30 years prior experience in an auditor's office before coming here. My elections team, my chief deputy and I assist our 2 full-time employees. We do have 4 casuals that come in to help us through the process. We have 11 remote boxes. The 12th one in the auditor's office has been taken off the list due to COVID. The building is closed and locked. So, and that's where we're at.
Thank you, Brenda. Now, Skamania County Auditor Robert Waymire.
Hello, I'm Robert Waymire. I've been in office since January 2015. Before that, I was the Skamania County Economic Development Council Director. Sorry, what else did you want us to talk about?
Just introduce yourself. Tell us about yourself, your office, whatever you want to tell us about what you do, elections. We'll get into questions, of course, but this is just your time for us to get to know you a little bit.
Great. We have 6 drop boxes and 7th in our office. They're spread out throughout the county. We have 5 staff in my office, and then we hire a few on-call employees during election time to help out with picking up ballots and processing and everything else. I guess that's all I have.
Great. Thank you so much. So we did have a lot of questions come in from the public. So I think, this can be a casual conversation. You can both have time to answer, but just because it's Zoom, maybe I can just rotate who goes first. And if you don't have anything to add going second, that's fine. We can just move on. Is that all right?
Yep.
Okay, great. So there are a couple questions about registration. Let's start with Brenda. So the first question is, what should someone do if they're having trouble getting registered to vote?
Call our office. They could, they can print off a form off the Secretary of State site, submit it to us. They can try to vote, register on vote law. However, if they do not have a valid Washington driver's license, they will need to submit their registration on a paper form. So, and use the last 4 of their social. You call our office or Robert's office or any auditor's office.
Okay, great. And Robert, we might have lost your audio, but let's see. Do you have anything to add on that?
I'm so sorry. I was kicked off, so I didn't hear any of that. I just got back on here.
Okay, yeah, no problem at all. So let's just move to the next question. And Robert, if you can start with the first person to answer, that'd be great. So people want to know if people are able to register to vote, even if they don't have a mailing address or standard dwelling address.
Sure, we could use cross streets, we can use GIS. There's ways that we can get around that to make sure that people can still register.
Great. Brenda, anything to add?
No, you know, we did have a question come in about how do we register someone on the reservation that doesn't have a, you know, physical address or, you know, landmark that we could use, and the GIS things will work.
Okay.
Like Robert
Great.
said.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so there are a few questions about ballots. So one is about their signature. They're wondering, you know, their first ballot, their signature might have been one way. Years later, it might have changed. They're wondering if it's necessary to update the signature on file with the county, or how can they avoid the ballot being tossed out?
Is that one for me?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine. Okay. So when you renew your driver's license, the updated signature comes to us, but a lot of times your signature might change for many reasons. Maybe you just want to change it, or maybe health reasons or age. If we have a question when we scan your envelope and it doesn't match, we will send you a letter asking for a signature verification. And like I said, your driver's license usually updates that, but if not, and you have until the day, 5 o'clock the day before certification to return that to us. And we will certify on the 24th. So we'd have to have it November 23rd by 5.
Okay.
And for Skamania County, we're open till 5:30, Monday through Thursday. So our time's a little bit different.
Yes, our hours are different.
Same thing, though, it would be the day before certification. And we don't just toss them, we work really hard to make sure that we get a signature that we can verify. People are sometimes surprised that we check every signature, but we literally go through every one and check them to verify the person.
Great. The next question is, can voters get their ballots in Spanish, Robert?
There's a state guideline on if you have to provide different languages, and we don't meet that guideline. Skamania County is about 95% white, so we haven't provided that in the past, and at this time we don't.
Okay, Brenda?
Yeah, we have not met that threshold either. So we do not provide multi-language ballots, and the state does provide us some Spanish voter guides that we do have. I think I provided some to Norma here last week, I think. So, but that's what we have. We don't meet that criteria.
Okay. Okay, how many ballots, let's start with Brenda. How many ballots typically for your county are unreadable? And then we're also wondering, are they saved for later evaluation? Are people notified when their ballot wasn't counted?
Okay, so we're expecting about 400 ballots to duplicate, and that happens for your UOCAVAs or any of the email ballots or ballots that are printed off the vote law, and they're duplicated in teams of 2, and then they're counted. The only time we'd notify the voter is if there's something wrong, like they didn't sign the envelope or the signature, you know, they miss a certification or it doesn't match. And the third part of that was, there was a third part.
Just are the ballots saved for later evaluation?
Yes, they are, and yes, we save those, and maybe they had their breakfast and spilt it on there or something, but yes, they're all saved, they're duplicated in teams of 2, and every vote that we can possibly count, we count.
Great. Robert, what about your office? How many ballots are usually unreadable, and how do you deal with them? Are people notified?
We're smaller, so we're probably about half that many. But we do the same thing. We duplicate them, and when we duplicate them, there's always two people there to make sure that they're both seeing the same thing. It's a process where we keep track. We have a spreadsheet. We keep the original ballot. We have the duplicated ballot, and typically it's things like people were eating when they get their ballot, so there's a mess on the ballot. And sometimes it's a little gross, but yeah, we don't just toss them out. If there's a major question mark on it, it would go to the canvassing board to make a final decision.
Okay, great. Robert, can completed, signed, and sealed ballots be collected and delivered by others?
As far as I know, there's not a law in Washington State that people can't do that. I know there's been talk about it since I've been in office, but I don't think anything has been put in place. We don't encourage that. We want everybody to make sure that they feel confident that their ballot got into the ballot box or into the mail. Brenda may have more information on that than
Yeah, Brenda, do you have anything?
No, I'm not aware of anything, any law, like Robert says. There's been discussion of it, but I'm not aware of any law either. So if you trust your neighbor to take your ballot to the ballot box, I guess go for it. But, we get it, we'll count it.
Yeah, and that kind of leads to the next question was, what can people do if they did submit a ballot, whether it's in the mail or the ballot box, but it wasn't received, like it was lost or stolen? What can an individual do?
They can request a replacement through our office. They can go onto votelaw.gov and print their own ballot and the certification and drop it in the drop box. There's ways to call either one of our offices, go to Vote Law. Like I said, you can print it off. And
Is there a deadline for that?
8 o'clock on election night.
Okay, so what if someone drops it off on 8 o'clock on election night and it doesn't, it doesn't get received?
I don't quite understand.
Well, you can track your ballot. So if I drop it off, 7 on election night, and I don't see that it hasn't been received until after 8 p.m. on election day?
So it's not that it's not been received. The process is we collect the ballots, we account for the number of ballots that came from each box or the mail or whatever it is, and they are put into batches, and until your signature is scanned into the system, it's not going to show we received it. It doesn't mean we haven't received it. It's locked up in a secure location in the queue waiting, because like, I said, we have 2 people so that do the bulk of that. And sometimes if you receive a huge amount at the last few days, whatever, I shouldn't say few minutes, it takes us a little bit to catch up. So it's not going to show up until we scan that signature.
Okay. And Robert, do you have anything to add on that question?
Yeah, same for us. We pick up the ballots during the day on election day, but at night we just lock them and then pick them up the next morning. So if you dropped it that night, right before we locked it, we wouldn't receive it till the next day, and it may not be processed, depending on how many we have for a couple of days. A lot of people like to wait till the last minute, so we usually get quite a few the last couple of days of election. So it may take a little bit of time, but we don't mind at all. Call us. We will check for you, make sure that we received it. You can go on votelaw.gov and check and see if it's been received, but I would usually give it a couple of days after you drop it.
Okay, thank you. So this question is about ways to volunteer. So we don't have poll workers anymore. Are there other ways to volunteer? Do your offices have any need for additional volunteers? Robert, let's start with you.
For us, again, we're pretty small. We do have on-call workers that we hire during this time, and it's, we've had the same couple of people for quite a while now, which is nice because they understand the process. They've gone through some of the training. So at this time, we don't have any need for it, but in the future, I mean, we do have a couple older individuals that are helping us, so there may be need in the future. And how you would do that with our county is you would go to the HR department and sign up on our on-call list. And then if something came up in the future, we would go to that list and work with people. But at this time, we have 3 people that we've used consistently, and we've been training that third this last couple elections. So right now, we just don't have a need. We have our election manager, myself, and 1 other individual in the office that are all certified. So we all help with elections during this time.
Great. And Brenda, what about your office?
So we're pretty well set right now. Working with elections, you need to have training. And we have 4 positions that give us, we use for our casuals, as we call them, for part-time help during the election period. And we do have 4 certified elections administrators in my office. And, we have a list for anyone that wants to volunteer. We take their name and their information. And should we have an opening, should one of those 4 people not be able to participate in an election that we know we're going to need that extra person, we would be happy to reach out to someone and provide the training in advance. So yeah, anyone interested can email or call our office and we'll put you on a list. And should we have a need, we just might call you.
Okay, great. So there's another question about the Dropbox pickup. So they're just wondering, because people do track, and so they kind of want to know when to expect to see when the ballot was accepted. Is there any sort of schedule of when you pick up from the Dropboxes that is public? Brenda, let's start with you.
So we generally, normally, we pick up 3 times a week on the west side of the county and 1 to 2 times a week on the east side of the county. And this election may be a little different. We might be picking up more often depending on the voter turnout. And we have 2 of our casual employees go and pick up those ballots in teams of 2 and bring them into us. And again, you won't see it if you put your ballot in there and our crew, our team stops by and picks up those ballots out of that box. Doesn't mean you're going to see it that day. Like Robert said, it might take a day or 2 for it to show up because we have to scan that signature in. So we're kind of flexible with our pickups. That's our general rule of thumb is, 3 and 1 or 2, depending on turnout. Our geographic area from east to west is a little bit larger than Robert's. So.
Okay. And Robert, what about you?
Yeah, ours is similar. We typically pick up twice a week, usually Monday and Wednesdays. But with this one being such a high profile and probably much larger turnout than we normally get, it may increase. We typically send our 2 people out to the west end in the morning and then the east end of the county in the afternoon. So we'll do the whole county each of those 2 days. But typically it'll be a Monday, Wednesday, and usually they leave around 10. But, it could always change depending on if somebody's sick or if it's busier or, other things that go on. But typically we'll do it on Monday and Wednesdays.
Okay, great. The next question, we'll start with Robert, is about communication between the auditor's offices and the post offices. People are wondering if their ballot is sent by mail, if it will go, far away for processing and take longer to get to, or if you've coordinated something different for this election.
Yeah, we've worked closely with them for quite a long time, especially our association. Us locally, we work with our Stevenson branch quite a bit to make sure that they get it to us as quickly as possible and that there's no issues. But unfortunately, when somebody drops mail in their box there, it goes to Portland first and then comes back. Seems very inefficient to me, but that's their protocol, that's their process. We do suggest when it gets close to election time that people go into the office and make sure that they get it stamped to make sure that the date is stamped on there correctly and that there's no delay on that. But yeah, we do work with them closely throughout the process and throughout the year.
Great. And Brenda, what about you?
Yes, we've been in contact with our postal service, and they also recommend that if you vote and decide to use the postal service instead of the drop box, to come into the office at close to election day, like on election day or the afternoon before, come into the retail office and get a hand stamp, like Robert says. Our mail, depending on which end of the county is in, some of it goes to Portland, some goes I think to Tri-Cities or Yakima, because they're in the East End. So they, like Robert said, it may not seem the most efficient to us, but that's their process. Yeah. And our postmaster, she was from Oregon, so they have to have their ballots in on election night. So usually in the afternoon, she'll just gather up what they have and bring in to us, which helps us so that we don't get, usually after election week, a lot of ballots come in because a lot of people wait until election day to vote. Okay.
All right. This question is, how long after an election day can a problem ballot be counted? Like if they have a bad signature or something, is there a time limit? Brenda?
Until the close of day, since Robert's hours are different than mine. Normally we're open 8:30 to 5, but he's got different hours because they're closed on Friday. But we are close to everybody right now. Yeah. But they have until the close of business day on the 23rd. We certify on the 24th. So, and we have a drop box down here at the bottom of the handicap ramp in front of the courthouse that we check, because the ballot boxes, of course, are closed. And since our building is locked to the public, the assessor and the auditor, we share a box down at the bottom of the ramp next to where the closest one close to the parking lot. So, you can drop it in there, or if you feel comfortable that we'll get it before we need to, by the close of the day on the 23rd, you can mail it.
Okay. And Robert, anything to add?
No, I mean, she said it's the day before certification. We're open until 5:30, so we'll have somebody in the office. I do want to add, though, we really do try to do as much as we can to make sure all these ballots are counted. We send letters out, and we actually do a call if it gets within 3 days of the day before certification. So we try to do as much as we can to help these people make sure that their vote is counted.
Awesome. That's great.
Thank you for that. I forgot to add that, Robert.
Yeah, thank you both for that. The next few questions are about ballot security. So there have been many questions raised in the news about the security of the election process. This person just would like an overview of how the process works, what procedures and precautions you are taking to ensure that voters have their ballots counted. So, I mean, you've made that pretty clear, but if there's anything else you want to add, that would be great. Robert, you want to start?
Yeah, like we talked about already, we do a lot of things. We always send 2 people out for boxes. We have people that are there right at 8 o'clock the night of to lock it up. We're always canvassing with multiple people to make sure that there's always people watching. This year, because of social distancing, we've added a camera that people can come into there's a feed into TV that's down in the commissioner's lunchroom. So if people want to come in and watch as we're canvassing ballots, they can do that at this time. Like I said, this is something new that we're doing. It's for the social distancing because we just don't have enough room in our office to bring a bunch of people in there, but we want to make sure that it's available if people want to come in. They added the last couple of years, we do batch testing. So at the end of, after we run ballots, we will pull a certain amount of them and do some hand testing to make sure that they match up with what our system says. So there's a lot of things in place and a lot of checks and balances throughout the whole process.
Great. Brenda, do you have anything to add?
Robert said most of, everything I'd have to say. So far as security at the ballot box itself, I think those boxes are very secure. I think they're made of 1/4-inch steel. I don't know about Robert's, but I know that's what I believe ours is made of. And the sheriff's office here in Klickitat County also has a posse. So they have a list of our ballot box locations, and if they're in the area, whether it be a deputy or one of the posse members, they'll drive by and just do a visual check and make sure everything's okay.
Okay. Let's see. The next question is, can you explain what is allowed by law and what is not in regard to ballot Dropbox supervision versus voter intimidation? Brenda, do you want to start?
So there are laws about voter intimidation. I don't know quite where to go with that. The law right now, it's 25 feet. You cannot advertise or campaign within 25 feet of the ballot box, which is not that far, really. But I really, I can't answer the one on intimidation. I mean, the person that's being intimidated, that'd be a civil matter, I'm sure.
Okay. Robert, do you have anything to add to that?
Just what Brenda was saying, there's 25 feet that they can't electioneer around it, and that's anything from pens to talking to signs or anything like that. You can't have any of that within 25 feet of our ballot boxes. As far as the intimidation, we've gotten a couple of questions on that already. I've talked to our sheriff's office, and really the only thing we can do is if somebody's feeling like they're being intimidated, we would contact the sheriff's office to go out and check with it. People shouldn't be intimidated trying to vote. I think there's a law against it, and that would be how the steps that we would take is we contact the sheriff's office and have them go check it out.
Okay. Great. Okay, so the last few questions I have are about the certification of results, and I just want to tell the audience that if you have any questions, to use the Q&A chat box, and we will ask them after these next few questions. If there aren't any, that's all right. We'll just get on with our day. So just a few more, and we'll start with, I think, Robert. So after the elections, if a recount is necessary, how would you handle that?
Well, we have some rules on whether we have to do a recount or not. I believe if it's within 0.5%, we do it. We have to do one, and that one would be done using our systems. We would rerun the ballot. If it's within 0.25%, I believe, we would have to do a hand recount. There's also, if it's within 125, or I can't off the top of my head remember the exact numbers, but luckily since I've been here, we haven't had to go through one. But we would follow the process set by the state, depending on what the race was and how close it was.
Mm-hmm. Brenda, do you have anything?
Yes, Robert pretty much said it all. It's 1/2 or 1/4% of the total number of votes cast for that race. But there have been some changes in the law with regard to recounts, and I would not feel comfortable reaching out and saying anything without really reviewing that. We've not had any recounts here for many years. Yeah, yeah. And so a machine recount, pretty much, my opinion is you get the same results that you had before. And so.
Okay. Great. So one person is wondering kind of when we can expect you guys to post the first results on election night, and if you know, if you can explain the process and anything that might hold you up, or yeah, anything like that. Brenda, do you want to start?
Sure. We've had a little delay and lag with the servers, like everybody at 8 o'clock trying to upload to the Secretary of State site. So most of us post a PDF on our website so that people can see the preliminary unofficial results that we have. And my county, we update those as we do updates, as you know, whenever we release our update. And the Secretary of State site will pick up our upload and get it posted on the state website as they can. So, you know, hopefully this year things will be streamlined. So results will be out there quicker on the state website. But you can always look on the county website, our county's website, and look at the PDF copy.
Great. And Robert, what about you?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, we're all dealing with the same system, so there's a little bit of a bottleneck when everybody's trying to upload at the same time. So the last couple of elections have taken a little bit longer, but we're typically done running the numbers about 8:10. If people are in the office, we print out sheets that they can have to view. But within the hour, depending on how quickly we're able to upload with the state website. We try to do it as fast as possible to see one of the first ones in, but sometimes that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, last question, prepared question, then we'll get to audience questions, is if you can just describe the role of the Secretary of State in election certification with your office. Robert?
I'm sorry, can you ask that one more time?
Yeah, just we're wondering the role of the Secretary of State in election certification.
Well, they oversee the system that we upload to, so that's sort of the election night. But as far as the certification, they receive certification from each of our counties, and then that day or the next day they would compile all that information and do their own certification. So they wait for ours from every one of the counties first.
Okay, great. And Brenda, do you have anything?
Yeah, and that's right. They compile all the counties, and I believe I had a date here. I want to say it's December, oh gosh, December 3rd, the state certifies. So after we have done our certification, our canvassing board has 2 canvassing meetings, one for initial, and then the second one is for certification to review the last minute whatever. And then we send our certification of our canvas to the Secretary of State's office, and they review those for all the counties, and then they certify the election.
And so, Sasha,
Yeah.
I want to add, each of the elections is a little bit different when the certification is. The primary, I think it's 18 days, the general is 21 days, and then the special elections, I think, is only 10 days.
Yes, that's right.
Different for each.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we have a few audience questions. The first one is, who picks up ballots from the boxes? Robert, let's start with you.
Well, like I mentioned before, we have some people that we have on our on-call list that we hire during that time. Typically, we'll send them out, but sometimes it's me, sometimes it's my election manager going with somebody else. But we'll typically have, there's 3 of us in the office that are certified, and then the 2 on call that we've been working with quite a while. 2 of the 5 of us would go out at any time.
Great, and Brenda, what about you?
Yeah, it's the same. We usually send two of our casual people out. If for some reason we need them for another project or they're not available, then we take two people out of the office usually and send, we will do that. But normally we try to use the casual employees. Same as Robert, two people. There's a still log in the ballot box, and you have to document when you broke the seal and verify the seal you broke and verify the seal that you put on. And then the same method for your bag or your container that you bring the ballots back in. You have a seal on the bag or container, and in our case, it's a bag. And there's a seal log as well on the outside of the bag and the inside of the bag. And those are all verified once you get to the office. But yes, Robert has the same, we do it the same.
Great. Okay. Another question from the audience is, what would happen if someone puts up an unofficial Dropbox? They say like in California, so I suppose that might be happening in California. So what would happen if someone did that in your county? Brenda, let's start with you.
Well, I would encourage them to take it down, because we're not going to have anyone, my staff is not going to go collect those ballots. So how are those ballots going to get to us? And my office, the whole courthouse, all the county buildings, until we go to phase 3 are locked. So I would be very concerned about it, and I would reach out. I would try to find out who did it and who put it up and why, because this county has several drop boxes, and talk to them and find out a little bit about it and see if they'd be willing to take it down. And if I had to take further steps, I would have to look into that, because we've not dealt with it.
Okay, Robert, what about you?
Yeah, I'd be very concerned about that. Like Brenda said, we have quite a few throughout our county. So there's not a need for it. Two, it would worry me if I didn't know about it until, it had been up for a while. So we'd like to encourage people to just make sure they use the ones that are on our website, or that are listed on our ballots, to make sure that they're taken to the correct place.
Okay, there is an audience question for Brenda, but Robert, you can answer for your county as well. So it's about voter intimidation again. If a voter feels intimidated at or near a ballot box and contacts the auditor's office, what will happen? What steps will the auditor's office take? And then there's a follow-up is, has your office had any advanced contact with the sheriff's office to plan for this scenario?
I would find out as much information as I could from the caller, and then I would contact the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office has been notified, they are trying to monitor those boxes, and I would report this to them, and I'm sure it would be taken care of. I would follow up with them to make sure what happened, and fortunately, no, we haven't had that, and I hope we never do.
Robert, do you have anything you want to add?
Just what I said earlier, yeah, it's a concern for this election. I know it's come up with a couple of our constituents that are concerned about it. So I have talked with the sheriff's office, and they are prepared if we need to call them out on election night or any other night for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a concern. Hopefully, in our areas, we won't have to worry about that, but I know across the country, it's something that people are concerned about and are worried.
Yeah, thank you. The last audience question is, since there's not a specific schedule for Dropbox pickups, would it be a pretty safe estimate to think your ballot would be processed within 5 or 6 days? Robert, what do you think?
Absolutely. Typically what happens is we bring 2 people out to the boxes. They bring them back. Whoever's in the office still would scan the signatures right then. So that when they go out and bring back the other ballots, when they come back, there's ballots for them to start opening. So we try to keep the whole process moving as we're going along. So 5 to 6 days is plenty. Typically, if it's between Monday and Thursday, it would be within a couple days. Obviously, when we're closed for Friday through Sunday, it might take till Monday or Tuesday. But 5 or 6 days is plenty.
Okay, great. Well, that's the end of our questions. Did you guys want to say anything else before we log off?
Well, thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Yeah, we really appreciate you being here. Robert, did you have something?
No, I was just going to say the same thing. Thank you. It's good to get this information out because there's a lot of people with a lot of misunderstandings about elections and our process. But once they find out everything that we go through and all the steps we go through, they're usually a little more comfortable with how the process is.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much. That's exactly why we had you here, and you answered all of our questions. You know, we'll share your contact information. So if anyone wants to reach out, if they have follow-up questions, I know that you'll be responsive, and we just really appreciate all you do. I also wanted to thank Norma for organizing this. Thanks again to our auditors, Brenda and Robert. Thank you all for joining us, and have a great weekend, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.